The 2014 KCB Kenya National Rally Championship approached the midpoint of the season with round 4, the KCB MTAANI Ravine Rally. The event took crews to the Baringo and Elgeyo Marakwet counties as the route returned to the Kerio Valley and a new base at Eldama Ravine. In recent years, the Rift Valley Motorsports Club Round has been run on routes around Mogotio and Soisambu. But with a return to such famous stages as the Flor Spar escarpment, the event promised to be both challenging and exciting. Tundo had taken victory on round 3 held in Kiambu, a maiden win for his new Proton S2000. It also returned him to the top of the leaderboard in the championship, and he would be hoping the new car would once again give him the edge over his title rivals. Defending champion Baldiv Chaga had retired with a blown gearbox and now trailed Tundo by 20 points as the pair arrived for the 4th round. Jassi Chatti arrived off the back of a fantastic second-place finish in the recently concluded Africa Rally Championship round in Zambia and would be hoping to once again challenge for a podium on home soil.
Well, Zambia was a different experience altogether. The stages were totally different, very tight through farms. It was a good experience, a totally different experience than the Kenyan rallies.
What's your plan?
It was a glorious sunrise that lit up the Kerio Valley on the Saturday morning, but a heavy storm the night before had left drivers wondering how much the roads had changed overnight. The event started outside the KCB branch in the town centre of Eldama Ravine, the Honourable Governor for Baringo, Benjamin Chiboy, on hand to flag the cars off, led away by Chatti, who would be road sweeping for the first time in his career. The first stage would take the crews from Tugamoy, dropping down through the forest and into the Kerio Valley. 32 kilometres long, the start was narrow and twisty on a steep descent before gradually opening up into a fast-flowing stretch across the valley floor. The second stage from Sangarao to Kazaret was 12 kilometres long and took the crews over the top of a ridge that was similar to the famous God's Bridge Road with steep drops on either side. The crews then arrived at the start of the Flor Spar stage, a former World Championship classic. Climbing over 1,300 metres in just 22 kilometres, with a multitude of tight hairpins and fast sweeping bends, drivers would need to keep one eye on the temperature gauge as they raced up the escarpment. This was followed by a short spectator stage before service at Kamwaso. The crews then repeated the first stage back into the valley before stage 6 took them on another old rally route from Kaptagich that hadn't been used for over 30 years. They would then have another chance to attack the Flor Spar stage before the final run through the spectator stage. The finish and prize-giving ceremony would be held at the Kamwaso Service Park. Overnight rain meant the first stage would be wet and slippery as the crews dropped into the Kerio Valley on a narrow, twisty track through forest. The change in road conditions would mean the crews would need to be cautious, despite having done recce the day before. As the road dried out and started to open up towards the end, crews could then attack again with confidence. Duncan started 5th on the road and went quickest, opening up a 7-second lead, his wealth of experience showing on the narrow descent through the forest section. Rajbir Rai picked up from where he left off in Kiambu, going 2nd fastest. He was the only driver on the same minute as Duncan and was 59 seconds faster than Chatti. He might have been quicker if he'd not got caught in Peter Horsey's dust. Chatti was 3rd fastest, 1 minute 6 seconds slower than Duncan, uncomfortable in the slippery conditions and driving carefully to keep the car on the road. Baldiv Chaga was suffering with flu and started the rally with a high fever and very little sleep the night before. He was a further 20 seconds back, but needed to finish to secure valuable points for the title. Carl Tundo attacked from the start, intent on winning his home round. He was visibly quicker, however his rally would end after cutting too much off a corner where he clipped a culvert, breaking the front right arm, and it was all over. Alex Horsey was back after missing the first 3 rounds in the Moto pickup. He was last seen on the East African Safari Classic, where he finished 6th overall. He set the 5th fastest time and led the S-Class. Peter Horsey dropped 28 seconds to his brother, but was still 6th fastest in the Evo 10. Asa Anwar's season had got off to a poor start, and he started cautiously, keen to get to the end. He was 7th fastest in the old Evo 8. Imran Mogul got off to a great start in his N12, setting the 8th fastest time. However, he was already over 2.5 minutes slower than Duncan. Raji Barrage was making a welcome return to the championship after missing several rallies in his Evo 9 and was just 5 seconds slower than Mogul. Galib Haji rounded out the top 10 in his Evo 10, but his rally would come to an end after he went off on the next stage. Manveer Barian was another driver making a welcome return after missing 2 rounds in his new N16. Taking time to settle back in behind the wheel, he went 11th fastest. Onka Rai punctured twice and plummeted down the leaderboard after he was forced to stop and change the wheel. He was joined by Gavin Lawrence for this event, who normally navigates for Alistair Kavanagh. Hardy Baresi was another top driver who had failed to make it out of the first stage after breaking a steering arm on his Mitsubishi. Alistair Keith was 12th fastest and 2nd in the S-Class in his Impreza behind Horsey. However, he was already almost 1.5 minutes ahead of his title rivals. Karan Patel was 3rd fastest behind Keith in the ex-Baldivchaga Impreza and was looking to build on his experience after a solid drive in Kiambu. The Nakuru round would be the first event this season with a good entry in the classic category. Jonathan Soman's Mark II Escort had been completely rebuilt and he went fastest to open up a 20-second lead. Ian Freestone was 2nd fastest in his Mark I Escort in what promised to be a good battle in the class. Defending champion Aslam Khan was back having missed 2 rounds in his Porsche 911 and was only 9 seconds slower than Freestone. Rob Helio was expected to be quick, but lost over 20 minutes when a rear suspension bolt dropped out and he was forced to stop and repair it. Dennis Mwenda was the fastest F2 driver on the long opening stage, opening up a 15-second lead in the class. Gurmit Thethi was 2nd fastest. He'd replaced an engine before the event and would have been faster if he had not got caught in the dust of the car in front and had to back off for the last 7 kilometres.
We've been a bit slow in the first section. We caught up Kabi in the last 7 Ks and we were sitting in his dust. And you know, that's the stage where it opens up, it becomes smoother, where you can send the car. So we've lost quite a bit of time sitting in his dust for the last 7 Ks.
Eric Bengi was 3rd fastest. He struggled to find grip at the start of the stage, but was only 4 seconds slower than Thethi.
Sections are very, very technical. You need to be very, very careful everywhere. Like the first section is very, very rocky. Then it opens into very, very slippery sections.
Nadeem Khanna was lucky to start the rally at all after the trailer carrying his car rolled on the way to the event. Fortunately, the damage wasn't significant and they were able to get the car repaired. The roughest part of the rally would be the transport section to stage 2. The second stage was the shortest stage at just 12 kilometres. The road was narrow with very little room for error. The surface was smooth but very slippery. Ian Duncan was once again fastest, increasing his lead by a further 20 seconds and opening up a gap of 44 seconds to Rai. Unfortunately, Raji Barrett clipped a bank, breaking the front steering arm. Unable to move the car, he blocked the road, and the organisers were forced to cancel the stage, giving the remaining crews a bogey time. We pick up the action now on the third stage, the first run up the Flor Spar escarpment. The road had recently been graded and was wide and smooth. This is one of the most famous stages in Kenya, having been a key safari rally stage when it counted for the World Championship. The road climbs over 1,300 metres in 22 kilometres, with breathtaking views of the Kerio Valley and a multitude of hairpins where seconds could be won or lost. Jassy Chatty went quickest in the Evo 10. It was his first time to tackle the climb, and he held his nerve, going 8 seconds faster than his rivals. However, he was now in fourth after losing time to Chaga on the previous stage. Peter Horsey was second fastest, the Evo 10's clearly at an advantage on the steep climb, where every ounce of horsepower counted. He moved up into fifth overall.
Coming up Flor Spar at the end was just certainly, I think, the best stage in this championship by quite a long way. I mean, absolutely fantastic driving up there.
Chaga was third fastest. He had overhauled Chatty to move into third overall, despite not feeling 100%. Rajbir Rai was fourth fastest and took 6 seconds off Duncan to close the gap on the leader, enjoying his first taste of the iconic stage. Rai completed a clean sweep on the stage by Evo 10s, just 1 second slower than Rajbir. However, he had lost time on the first stage with 2 punches and was still lying down in 15th overall.
Flor Spar was just incredible. Had a lot of fun.
Ian Duncan punctured near the top and was forced to back off, driving to the end of the stage before changing the tyre. However, he still held a comfortable 30-second lead.
Coming out of Flor Spar was lovely. It's a really nice section, but then towards the end we got a puncture on the front right, so we drove on it. So we lost a bit of time, but nothing too serious.
Manveer Barian was getting back into his stride and went 7th fastest in the N16, moving him up the leaderboard to 7th overall. Asa Anwar was only a second slower, the veteran enjoying a return to the stage that he hadn't driven for a number of years. Imran Mogul continued to impress in his N12, with the 9th fastest time up the hill, moving him into 8th overall. Ronak Shah was recovering from early problems and went 10th fastest, the young Kisumu driver gradually improving in the N12 on only his 3rd outing and moving up to 12th overall. Jasmeet Channa moving into the top 10, lying in 9th behind Mogul, enjoying the chance to open up his Evo 9. Mahesh Halai rounded up the top 10 overall in his N12, showing the kind of pace that had made him an S-Class title contender in 2013. Tejveer Rai was forced to retire with a broken shaft after lying in 10th after the first 2 stages, a huge disappointment for the Nakuru crew on their home round. Alex Horsey too was forced to retire after his engine blew halfway up the hill. It was a frustrating return for the Moto pickup driver after leading the S-Class comfortably. Keith took over the class lead despite overheating on the climb and having to back off. He lost time to Halai and dropped out of the top 10. Karan Patel went fastest on the stage to reduce the gap to Keith to under a minute and open a 30-second gap to Njogu behind. Eric Njogu was second fastest, but was now in 3rd overall in the S-Class. Ian Freestone got the better of Soman on this stage, beating him by 6 seconds to close the gap to 21. Soman was enjoying his first outing since the Classic Safari. The car, he said, felt good, and he led the class after the first loop. Aslam Khan was losing ground to the escorts and was over a minute and a half behind Freestone in the more powerful Porsche. Dennis Mwenda continued to lead the F2 class and was once again fastest, winding up the sprinter to the limit as he tried to get the most out of the front-wheel drive car on the loose hairpins. Eric Bengi was second fastest to overhaul Sethi and move into second. Sethi dropped to 3rd, but only trailed Bengi by 6 seconds. Once again, the F2 class was going to be a tightly fought battle. Title leader Leonardo Varese had a leaking shock and had overheated his clutch, forcing him to limp through the stage in the hope of making it back to the service park. The first run through the Spectator stage had been made difficult by overnight rain, which had left the route slippery with lots of standing water. However, the crowds had gathered in their thousands to enjoy the spectacle and would not be disappointed. The stage, whilst only 1.8 kilometres long, had the top 10 separated by just 12 seconds. It had been a long loop without service and demanding on both the cars and the drivers. For the top crews, however, the return to the Flor Spar had been the highlight of the season so far, and they set their sights on the repeat of the morning stages.
Yeah, we're definitely aiming for a clean run. You know, we want a solid finish, and for sure, when we get to Flor Spar again, we're going to really push and see if we can get first fastest time on that.
I've actually been battling with the